Welcome back to another Good Eye Podcast. My name's Jay Smack, your host. And my guest today is Sorana Blackfoot. Sorana has a mission to help people, primarily women, she works mostly with women, overcome their fear of money and have a positive relationship with their money. She is a seminar leader. She is a financial educator. She's a published author several times over. She's a podcast host, recently starting a new podcast, and it's an honor to welcome her to the Good Eye Podcast to talk about people's relationship with their money and how to have a better one. So without further ado, let's get to it. Here's my guest, Sorana Blackfoot, talking about the fear of money on today's Good Eye Podcast. And welcome to another Good Eye Podcast. I'm Jay Smack, and this is a format, if you're no stranger to the podcast, for positivity, curiosity, people doing good stuff in their community, good people doing good things. And today's subject is really interesting to me, and I'm glad it came up. And my guest is Sorana Blackfoot, who I've known for several years now. And Sorana, let me run through some of the stuff you're into. You can add to it or correct me as we go, because you're doing a lot. Prosperity mentor at Unbroke Women. You host events called Wine, Women, and Wealth, based on, I believe, your involvement with Five Rings Financial. You are the founder of the BRIL Conference. You are a best-selling author, at least 2 books. I know you have New World, New Dreams, My Money Story in 2018, and then one you just released this year, which is doing quite well, called Money Mindset Makeover, Ignite a Love Affair with Your Money, which is sort of the crux of our conversation today. But feel free to add anything you want, and then we'll kind of get into why people have a very complex relationship with their money. And this is not necessarily a money advice episode, but that whole thing around fear of money, even to the point where we ignore it, whether we're addressing our money or our lack thereof, figuring, well, we'll work it out later. But just having a relationship with your money, pulling that curtain back, can be so productive. So with all that as a foundation, welcome. Is there anything I missed? And why the fear of money?
You hit on pretty much everything, Jay. Thank you for having me. I thoroughly enjoy talking about money, so we could be here for a long time. But why? Because, well, I had to learn about it. So my journey with this love affair with money started by me moving from the country where I was born and raised, which is Romania, to the United States. And I grew up around money, not in a sense that we had tons of it, but in a sense that I understood the workings, because my mom was one of the people that paid salaries in the big factory where she was working. We always had conversations. We want to buy this. Do we have the money? We don't have the money. Maybe we do have the money. We need more money. How do we make more money? I grew up with those conversations. So I understood the Romanian system where you got the money, you spent the money, and then you go work and make more money. But I didn't understand the complexities of what's a credit card. What in the world is a credit score, and how do you get one of those? And why do you have to file taxes? Because in Romania, you go to work, you make a paycheck, and they keep whatever taxes they keep, end of story. So I had to learn all of those things, because moving here, I had to deal with them myself. And I incorrectly assumed that people that grew up here knew how the system works here, because I felt I understood the way the system works in the country that I was born and raised. So I assumed that people born and raised in the United States knew the same things that I now had to learn. So as I was learning and I was finding out different things that to me sounded kind of weird, I started telling people, hey, did you know this? Hey, I had no idea about that, but that sounds really interesting. And their response, about 90% of the time, was, I didn't know. I never heard that. Nobody ever told me. So all of that to me was confusing and surprising, very unexpected. But it also brought up a passion for me to make sure that these people understand what I'm talking about And I've been in the financial industry since 2005, talking to a lot of people about their life insurance, about what happens when or if, or well, when for death, but if for other things. And talking to them about that, I really made it my point, my mission to make sure they understood what I was saying and not just say, hey, you should get this because I know, because I'm licensed and I know better. So from there, I just align myself with companies that do the same type of good work.
Elaborate on that a little bit. Align yourself with companies that do good work. In what way? Representing them as
Right.
a representative? Okay.
Right. You mentioned my my collaboration with Five Rings. I joined Five Rings before COVID. I actually tell people COVID happened for me because you know, a lot of people blame COVID for this, that, and the other. But I do believe, like Tony Robbins says, that things happen for you, not to you, and it's what you make of them. So for me, COVID was a good thing, even though I feel for the people that lost loved ones or had to deal with it. But from a business standpoint, COVID was actually very beneficial for my business. Five Rings Financial is very well represented in Virginia, in the Virginia Beach area. We do have representatives in Richmond, but not as many because it hasn't been here for as long. And so the major events, the big educational events that I wanted to invite people to were happening in Virginia Beach. And that's all great if I want to go, but not so great if I want to tell somebody, hey, go to this event, but by the way, you have to drive a couple of hours there and a couple of hours back. So when COVID happened, all of the events that we host happened online. And that helped me make sure I get to expose more and more people to events like Wine, Women, and Wealth that you mentioned. Money 101, when we teach people the American money system that a lot of people have no idea about. So that's why I'm saying it happened for me. And that was a big help. I've been passionate about educating people where money is concerned, but now I found a home in this company that also believes in the same thing.
You mentioned that when you came over from Romania, and how old were you?
I was in my 20s. So I was after school, after everything.
Okay. That a lot of Americans, in your experience, didn't understand how money works, how taxes work, how investments work. Did you find that? Have you traveled to other countries and did you find the same thing? If so, and why do you think that is, that so many Americans don't understand how money works? Is it entitlement? Is it lack of education? What do you think contributes to it?
I think it's a combination of various factors. And I can't speak for other people in other countries because I haven't lived there. I spent time in England while I was in college, but that wasn't the conversation that we had. What I can tell you about students in England is that they always complain about lack of money, even though it was super easy to get a job. And if you worked a few hours, you could have beer money for a couple of weeks. So I didn't really get that. So maybe they have the same issues. I don't know their tax system. But I will say that in the United States, the whole system is quite complex. And even though you can find answers, most people, you know, it's daily life. They got to go to work, take care of family, whatever crisis they have to deal with, whatever fires they have to put out. And I think that money is not really a priority for most families. What I believe is happening is that it's a generational issue. And why I'm saying that is because most families don't have conversations around the dinner table about, hey, you know, when something happens to me, you need to find my life insurance papers in the left drawer in my cabinet in my office. You know, they don't say, you know, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, don't put me on life support. They don't have those. It's not normal in day-to-day family life. And when kids move out because they're grown and independent, they don't really know what the parents have or where it is in the home or what mom or dad wants when this and that happens. And also, I think there's a little bit of a shame factor because, and I always explain money as the same with weight. right? Most people feel they have less money than they want to and more weight than they want to. So the challenge with having less money than you want to is that you don't really want to tell other people. And especially you don't want to tell your kids. You don't want your kids to know, well, mama or daddy is not doing as well as I think they should, or as well as they think they should. So because of that, they don't share. And then kids grow up not knowing and not understanding. Of course, yes, it's not a topic taught in school. It should be all that. There's a whole conversation about that part. But even that within the family, they don't see this. It's also that the society is heavily encouraged to buy, whatever. And when they're encouraged to buy, and when there are a ton of ads and a ton of information that's being thrown at people about easy credit or get a tax refund and then buy this with your tax refund, people will follow that at some point because it's the easiest thing, because they don't know any different, because it's being suggested by somebody of trust, like a company they trust or the government or whoever else. So they don't necessarily make the best money decisions just because even though the information is available, most people don't take the time to really vet that information.
You brought up some good points. Among them, how much shame is associated with certain personal elements, whether it's, like you said, weight or personal issues or money. And I guess some of that has to do with how much quote unquote opportunity there is in America. And by that, I mean, to go out and start a business, whether it's successful or not, is really the sort of an afterthought when I think of opportunity in its purest form. Shame, expectations, comparisons to other people in society. It's a very personal issue. Where do you start when you start working with people if they have, say, some of these issues, whether it's shame or because you probably run up against it where they're not being completely honest with you and you're working on their team, on their behalf? Where do you start when you start counseling people and working with them, whether it's tax reform or investments, etc.?
Well, I will say this. The way I started my book, you mentioned my second book that just came out. I wrote it as a 21-day program. And I will say this because this is how I'm trying to teach through the book, through all the opportunities that I get to speak to people. Always, you have to keep two things in mind. You're going to start with the decision, because if you don't decide to fix anything, you're not going to fix anything. Okay. Whether that's your weight, whether that's your money or anything else. And secondly, whatever changes you make, you have to make sure they're sustainable, right? You probably know of, hey, eat this for 30 days, you're going to lose this many pounds. Okay. But at the end of the 30 days, you get back to your bad habits and now you gain the 30 pounds or maybe 40 pounds. Or I know years ago, I don't know if this year in particular, because I haven't really been looking for it, but I know it became like a fashionable thing to do a 30-day money fast. Oh, don't spend any money for 30 days. How sustainable is that? Okay, yes, you can do it for 30 days. Most people probably can't even for 30 days, but even if you do it for 30 days, if you start spending at the end of the 30 days to make up for it, what's the point? What did that really solve? So you have to change your money habits by making sustainable changes, not by changing everything radically, right? Even people that want to give up things like alcohol or tobacco. Yes, you can do cold turkey, which is the hardest. And usually it's motivated by health, where you really don't have a choice. But it's easier if you walk yourself through a process, and at the end of it, you can sustain whatever those changes are. And money really doesn't impact your health in such a visible way like tobacco or alcohol. So it's even more of a will exercise, right? You have to really want to change. So it starts with that decision that I need to do something. And usually there's a trigger. Either you're in a really bad situation, or maybe you're in a bad marriage and you just got out of it and now you want to fix your life, or something happened, like maybe somebody passed or had a major life crisis, health crisis, and you realize, oh my God, I need life insurance because look what happened to this person. It's usually a trigger. People don't just wake up one morning and say, okay, starting today. Now, a lot of people fool themselves into saying, I'm going to start at the first of the year. But you know what happens with gym memberships. Everybody shows up January 1st, maybe January 5th, maybe 15th, a few on January 30th. And by March, nobody's in there. So, it's the same with money. Oh, this year I'm going to do better. Okay, what am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to pay off my credit cards. I'm going to spend less money. I'm going to do maybe save or whatever. And they do it for a month, 2 months, maybe 3 months, and then it falls by the wayside. So it is a matter of making it sustainable. It's a matter of making the decision first. That's always the first step, whatever changes they want to make. But then make it sustainable. Don't change everything so radically that it doesn't fit with your personality, with your lifestyle, with the way you normally do things.
You mentioned early people's lack of understanding of the, quote, American money system, which is an incredibly complex term or blanket statement. But in your opinion, in your view, you may say it's 50-50, but is the bigger problem in people's lack of discipline and lack of budgeting and having a sustainable plan? Or does it rest more or equally, or that's up to you, some of these predatory investment or financial practices, i.e., no payments for a year, the start out credit cards that are 27%, all that stuff? I got to think it's a balance of the both, but do you see a lot of that?
Yeah, it is a balance. But see, one thing you have to understand as just a regular Joe Schmo of the street, a regular person, is that nobody's really looking to take care of you. You have to take care of yourself. And I tell people that all the time. If you don't take care of yourself, don't expect somebody else to. Now, unfortunately, because of the way things have been generations past, people expected the government to take care of them, right? So they expected, well, Uncle Sam's going to give me a pension. Uncle Sam's going to do this and that. Or I'm going to get a refund, which also comes from Uncle Sam. And I have a whole soapbox about getting a tax refund. But people expect that somebody, the Santa Claus person, is going to take care of them. So when you're talking about companies offering a perk of don't pay any interest for this long, or introductory interest of 0%. Afterwards, we're going to jack it up to 30%, but hey, you're paying introductory for the first whatever number of months. And those kind of things. People think, oh, this is really good for me. They're taking care of me. Maybe they don't really say that to themselves, but they think that, oh, this is a good deal. They're doing something for me. No, they're not. They're businesses. They want to make money. Their responsibility is to make money for the people that pay them, or that support them, which is their top people, their shareholders, whoever they owe something to. Their job is not to look after the little guy that gives them like $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 worth of credit card debt, right? So when you're doing these things, and I'm not, hey, if somebody gives you 0% interest for 6 months to buy something and you need that something, buy it, but plan on paying that thing in 6 months. So you're actually using the 0%, not make minimum payments. And then at the end, now you're still paying the interest. Because then what was the deal? How did you take advantage of that? So you have to really think it through, which most people don't. They start with, "Ooh, that sounds good," but then they don't process the rest of the information. I have a friend that used to say this in meetings years ago, that what the big print giveth, the small print taketh away. And I feel that that is so true when it comes to these offers that are out there for money, right? Because they may say, well, if you get this credit card, you're going to have 0% interest for, let's say, 6 months. They don't say, well, the small print does say, well, after 6 months, you're going to pay this plus maybe an annual fee or whatever. They also may say, if you put your money here, we're going to give you, let's say, 2%, 5% interest for this much time. but they don't say, but you can't touch your money, or after this time period, your interest is going to be 0 point something, right? They don't tell you what happens after the big thing, the good thing. So that's why you have to think it through. And if the good thing is something that's good for you and something you want or need, okay, go for it. But think about the what else? What's after, right? We're used to stories that end up with happily ever after, right? They got married and they lived happily ever after. But nobody's asking what happened the next morning. How did they wake up? Did she have like a horrible face because she hadn't put the makeup on? Did he have bad hair and his hair was like standing all sorts of ways, right? We're not thinking of the next day, of the after. So, okay, in stories it's cool because, you know, your kids are enjoying and having fun and all that. But in real life, you need to consider those things, because the good stuff, even if it comes good initially, is it good throughout, or is it going to hurt you on the back end?
A lot of what we've been talking about so far, and this always fascinates me about financial discussions, it all seems to make perfect sense. It's all logical. Don't spend more than you have. Don't fall for these scams, all that. However, what about life-changing events? When it comes to fear of money, some of that fear is fear of something happening that we can't cover or that will sap all our resources, whether it's a medical event or maybe a bad investment that seemed too good to be true, or even college or home ownership has so ballooned over the last 10 to 20 years exponentially. It's not what it used to be. It wasn't a certain percentage, make a certain take a certain percent of your income, put it towards a college saving plan, and you'll be good. And, it's that way with pensions and retirements too. How do you navigate, or what is some advice you give to people who have experienced these life-changing events through no fault of their own? Maybe they've done everything right financially and something just takes the floor out from underneath them.
And it can happen. Many people still remember the issues with the market in 2008, 2009. Recent issues, right? A lot of the savings that people have been accumulating for years got slashed because the market crashed. But even that's normal. And that's the one thing that people need to remember, that market will correct itself. Just like the real estate market, the prices, yes, are ballooning. At some point, it's going to correct itself. Nothing can last forever because it's not sustainable, right? If you see a stock that skyrockets, if you didn't get in when it left the ground, at some point, it will be too late. Right? When you see the house values going up, if you didn't buy it at a price that you think is reasonable, you're paying too much. So you have to think about all of these elements. And you said the money system is complex. Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you that figuring this stuff out is quite simple if you put the time. It's not easy because the discipline part of it is not easy, right? You said that we were discussing about, okay, make money, spend less than you make, keep some of it and all that. That's the simple factor. But the not easy factor is the fact that you have to consistently do this thing. That's why I don't agree with the 30-day money fasting and all that, because you cannot sustain it. So even though it makes sense, it's not something you can consistently do. College, well, that's another soapbox altogether, because those prices got raised. When I first came here and I heard about how much it cost, I felt so blessed that I had finished all my schooling in Romania and I did it for free, because there are options where you pay for college, but there are ways to go to college for free. So, and now the paid options have increased since I've been here. But back when I was growing up, most of the universities you could attend for free. Now you had to qualify by having high grades, by passing entrance exams and stuff like that. But if you did that, they gave you scholarship. What that meant to me, scholarship means here's money for you to spend. It wasn't, oh, we're going to pay for your school expenses, because I didn't have school expenses. Now I had living expenses, but not school expenses. So to me, that was a foreign concept. And one thing I always tell people, okay, horrible as it is to have student loans, you can finance university. You cannot finance your retirement. So even though, okay, you're trying to help your kids not to end up with a big bill, I totally agree with that, and I don't wish student loans upon anybody. However, as the parent, again, put your oxygen mask first. Make sure you have your retirement, because otherwise your kid may not have student loans, but your retirement plan is living in their basement. So you have to make sure that your retirement is okay before you start helping them. And I know of people that are taking on loans as a parent of the student and dealing with that. And it's not the healthiest way, because then what? Your kid may be loan free or have a small loan or manageable, all that. Great, fabulous. You did a great job raising your kid. What kind of a job did you do taking care of yourself? Because then if you didn't, you're now making the kid pay by being a burden because you didn't do the things. Now you don't have the retirement or the possibilities. And unfortunately, by the time all of this unfolds, people are close to retirement age. So can they save? Yes, but the time is not in their favor. The money doesn't have time to grow.
Mm-hmm. Or adjust if something comes up, like that life-changing event you were talking about.
Right. Oh, and you mentioned, yes, speaking of life-changing events, you mentioned about if it's a medical crisis or something. Mm-hmm. Well, medical bills are the number one reasons why people filed for bankruptcy in the United States. And it's sad because it shouldn't cost you an arm and a leg to be able to get back into your health, right? If the society as a whole can benefit from your contribution, the society as a whole should somehow figure out how to keep you a valuable member to keep contributing. Now, this is a bigger issue. We're definitely not going to solve it today, but I think that there are things that can be done even on a personal level to make sure you somewhat control what is happening with your health, which means then what is happening to your finances that doesn't need to go to medical bills, right? So a lot of people, and this goes back to the advertising and all the information that people are given, a lot of people go for the easy things, right? Fast foods are prospering. People eat fast food because it's easy, because it's fast. Besides the fact that it costs you a lot of money to buy it, you may not think $5 is a lot, but it adds up if you do it every day or almost every day. But secondly, you're paying with your health. Yeah. And then you're paying more money because now you got to fix the health. So if you're figuring out ways to eat better, then you can figure out ways to keep more money later, because now you don't spend money on bills. On medical bills, I mean.
That's really good advice. Okay, you mentioned earlier a whole other soapbox is a tax refund. Can you elaborate about that? You really caught me with that one.
Okay, so it's nothing wrong with having a refund if you are in a precarious income situation where you qualify for different tax credits, right? If you're supposed to receive child tax credit or earned income credit because you make under a certain amount of income annually. Now, that's a totally different story about people that are taking advantage of that. But if you're right there where you qualify, okay, get your refund, use it wisely, first of all. But what is happening, a lot of people don't like to pay a tax bill when they file their taxes. So they have more money withheld throughout the year from their paycheck usually. And then they end up getting a refund at the end and they get happy about it. Okay, I get it. You don't like to pay a big tax bill, but you shouldn't really look forward to a big refund either, because a big refund simply means you gave the government too much money during the year and now the government is giving it back to you. So another way to look at it is, if you give me the money and I'm your friend, and next year I give it back to you and I say, thank you for letting me use it, here's your money back. How much would you like me if you found out that in the meantime, I invested this money, maybe let's say 3 times into 3 business ventures that gave me maybe 3 times that amount of money. In the meantime, you're just getting your money back, right? I'm not saying Uncle Sam is investing in businesses, because I don't know what they're doing with the money. That's a totally different conversation. But what I'm saying is that people are lending money to Uncle Sam that then they get back, but they're only getting back what they gave and nothing extra, right? So if you, instead of giving that money to Uncle Sam, put it in a bank account, is not the best place because it gives you the smallest amount of interest. But even if, let's say, in a bank account that gives you $2 extra, $5 extra, something, it's still more than nothing.
Yeah, that's a great point. Maybe some sort of like a 529 or an HSA or something. You put the tax money you want to have withheld in there during the year and earn interest on it at the same time, and then you keep the interest and you pay Uncle Sam your taxes. That's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, you can do a lot of other things.
Yeah, and people do.
Even if you end up with a tax bill, you can have the money somewhere. Have it in a CD because it has more interest than the regular bank account. And okay, yes, it's going to be locked in there for a number of months, but time it to where you have access to it, let's say February, March, April, whenever you want to file your taxes, and then keep the interest. And surprise, surprise, you may not even have to give all the money.
Yeah, and whole industries are built on people doing exactly what I described with the HSA. That was sort of a simplistic analogy, but yeah, hiding that money, putting it to work, and then writing it off so you don't have to give it to Uncle Sam. Absolutely. Do you have any thoughts on universal basic income? And that is where the government basically pays people a small amount, and I say small amount, an amount that's been kicked around is like $2,000. Is it a year, or is it $1,000 a month or something like that? In lieu of, say, other services that they can use towards food or healthcare, et cetera, rent. Any thoughts on UBI?
Honestly, I never heard of that concept, but I would say that would be a dangerous thing in the United States.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people that are getting these services are not very highly educated in the financial sense. And I think that the money would not go to the things that it's intended for. I mean, look at what happens with the tax refunds, right? People get a big paycheck because they have maybe, let's say, 3-4 kids. And it's not like their life is improving, really. I mean, they buy an extra TV or maybe an extra car, which, okay, could be a good thing. But if your income is not too high, you shouldn't put money in something that gives you all the bells and whistles you don't need, right? How many people live in not a great house, but drive a car that's more expensive than their house? Or how many people live on food stamps, but have a huge flat screen TV in their living room? Nothing against flat screen TV, nothing against fancy car, but something about priorities, right? If you want those things, then work your way up to them. Don't consider that your first priority. Take care of other things first, and then get the fancy car or the big TV or whatever. Because there are other things that you can do that will have a long-lasting impact on your life in a good way, that will improve where you are and will help you get towards a better place, wherever you want to be, whatever your goal is, instead of doing things with the money that are not going to benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, and your points,
which would happen if people all of a sudden started getting, let's say, even if it's $1,000 a month. And if that money is supposed to take care of, let's say, utilities, most likely at least half of that money is not going to go there. Or if it's supposed to take care of food, let's say, instead of food stamps, some of it will probably go to food, but not all of it. Yeah, I mean, hey, food banks wouldn't be as busy as they are if more people would plan their money better. And I know some people are, I'm not talking about everybody. Some people are legitimately in a bad spot because something happened. Maybe they had to take a pay cut, or maybe they couldn't work because somebody was sick and they had to take care of them. I get it. I get it. And everybody needs a hand up every so often. And I'm not dissing on anybody. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that if you make a priority out of understanding money, understanding the financial system, you can get through the rough patches a little bit faster.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is some of the main arguments against it, but there was a presidential candidate named Andrew Yang, also recently ran for governor of New York, and his platform was universal basic income. He thought it was a good idea, so anybody interested in that subject can look that up. But as we bring this plane in for a landing, I always like to open the floor up in case there's anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to mention. But I want to enter into that with one last question. How much do you feel, if at all, that part of your function, at least part, is keeping people accountable? Much like a doctor, people who have a good relationship with their doctor tend to know that someone's looking over their shoulder, because like you just said, when we were talking about UBI, left to our own devices, we can be pretty self-destructive, no matter what that is, because a lot of it is immediate gratification, whatever form it takes. How much do you think your function is keeping people accountable with their finances, and maybe being a relationship counselor, as it were, between people and their money, if at all?
Well, Jay, full disclosure, I don't babysit. I cannot persuade people to take care of this. I cannot be the person that always says, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? I can't. It's just not in my nature. It's just, I don't. So I'm very available for whoever makes the decision to do something about it. But my job is not to babysit. It's not to keep pushing people, because if the person doesn't really want to do it, if the person doesn't really want to change the way they've been doing things, if they don't have that life event, or in somebody else's life that they connect with, that something changed where they realize they need to change something, then you can't convince them, right? Because they're not going to keep doing it without you being on their shoulder. Now, I do have friends and some clients that say, I hear your voice in my ear when I do this, because we have this conversation. But again, it's still on them to do it, because I'm not there saying that. That's in their mind that I'm there, right? So that still comes from them doing it. So that's why it's very important that the first step people make is make that decision. Because if you don't make that decision that I need to be better tomorrow than I am today when it comes to my money, then, tomorrow will come and the day after tomorrow will come and you'll be in the same spot. And well, if it's comfortable, okay, well, then stay in the same spot. But then you don't need me, because there's nothing I can do. But if you make that decision, then yes, I can walk by your side. I can be there and say, hey, come on, you can do it. I can be your cheerleader. I cannot be your babysitter.
I like that. I respect that. Cool. Sorana, awesome. I'm going to run through some of the stuff you're into again, and because we didn't get to touch on everything. Unbroke Women, of course. We didn't you touched on Wine, Women, and Wealth, which is your regular forum that you do with Five Rings Financial under that umbrella. BRIL Conference, we didn't really touch on, and we didn't talk about your podcast. Can you talk about those things just for a second?
Yeah, I stopped my podcast. I actually want to restart it, so maybe you and I will have a conversation outside of this, because I feel people's money stories are important.
Yeah.
But I will say that what I do is mainly with the intent of helping people do better with whatever it is that they want. I started BRIL Conference because I'm passionate about making sure that if your passion is a good thing, which mostly it is, people start a business because they're passionate about it, and a lot of times because they want to change the world. And BRIL was born with the intention of teaching people the business side of things. Just because you're a great, whatever, writer, podcaster, author, marketer, branding person, whatever your specialty is, just because you're awesome and amazing at that, it doesn't make your business sustainable. So the purpose of BRIL is to teach people how to have all of the business pieces around their passion, so the passion can continue and they can build a legacy. I'm doing the education events when it comes to money because I want people to understand money. I don't want them to just do something because somebody tells them something. And you're absolutely right. The financial system is very complex. And unfortunately, there are people within the system that will take advantage of the fact that people don't know or don't understand. And they say, do this or buy that. And people do. And sometimes it's not in their best interest, but they don't even know what questions to ask to figure out if it is in their best interest. So how would they know even? I learned from my own experience. I had other people doing my taxes, and then I learned that they didn't do them 100% correctly when I started doing them. So, but I wouldn't have known that if I didn't take the initiative of understanding what's going on. I can't even tell you the number of people that say, oh, my previous tax person didn't ask me this. And I said, well, do you want them done or do you want them done right? Right? So you have to really know a little bit, just know enough to know what to ask. And most importantly, whatever your financial needs, talk to multiple people in that same field, because you'll understand who has the same values as you, who vibes in the same way, who is more honest than the next person, and who you really connect with, who understands you, right? So you make the decision. Sometimes it's a gut thing. Sometimes it's a totally brain thing. You make sense on paper. You put your pluses and your minuses. Whatever way you make decisions, but talk to multiple people. Because when you only talk to one person, hey, anybody, if they're a good salesperson, can make anything sound awesome and amazing, right? So that's why I do what I do. That's why my main focus is education. Yes, I can do all of these things. I can do life insurance. I can do retirement. I can do people's taxes. But mainly, I want them to understand how all of this stuff works together. I was in a meeting recently and I said this thing and it just came to me and it made sense. So I'll share it here. Money itself, your money life, your financial life is very complex. It has a lot of pieces. You don't need to know everything about every piece, but you need to know enough about each piece so that you don't mess up one of them. Because if you mess up a piece of your financial life, it's going to impact all the other pieces of your financial life and beyond your financial life in the rest of your life.
I love it. That's a really refreshing view. And it really comes out during the conversation how much education and educating people about their money and just how it works, what to be very respectful and careful with, and what to not be afraid of. So I appreciate you taking some time. Where can people find you and find out more about you?
I live on Facebook part-time, so you can definitely find me on Facebook. If you Google me, there is only one Sorana Blackfoot, so I can promise you won't find somebody else. You can follow me. I'm trying to do better with LinkedIn, so I post there sometimes. And definitely check out my YouTube channel because I post videos there about money. So you can get a taste of what I sound like, what I teach. And if that vibes, let me know and I'll be glad to have a conversation.
Nice. Well, thank you, Sorana. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I always learn something. So that's an endorsement right there. But thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And attention today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jay, for having me. I appreciate the invite.
All right. Thanks so much, Sorana. Appreciate, once again, her insight. And get in touch with her if you would like a little bit more information on any of her books, the BRIL Conference, her Zoom calls and seminars, and her podcast. She's all over the place, and I mean that in the best possible way. Thanks to you for your time, attention, and intention today on the Good Eye Podcast. Please reach out if you have any interesting conversation ideas. And until next time, we'll talk to you very soon on another Good Eye Podcast.